So you're looking for a book that can perhaps change your perspective on money. Well, my name is Marcus. This is Discover Ignite, where we discover possibilities and ignite change. And today I'm doing a book review for you guys on a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So hold on, stick tight, and let's get this book review started. So before I actually really got into any kind of business books, right, I wanted to be better with my money. And ultimately, I felt like I was pretty decent with my money, right? I always watched my money, where it was going and everything. But this book really changed my perspective on money. And whether you like Robert Kiyosaki or not, I must say that this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, will really change your perspective on money. And it has mine, right? And this book, essentially goes about Robert Kiyosaki as a young man and has a poor father, right? The poor dad, which essentially, he worked his whole life, he works hard 9 to 5 and, did the college route and all these other different things, and essentially tries to pull him down that route, right? And this is the route you need to go, and this is what's gonna happen. And he just saw his father struggle, right? And then he had a friend that had this rich dad, right? And essentially shows you his thought process, right? What the steps he took to become rich, and that you had to change your perspective about a lot of different things that we're all taught at a young age. And so this book, I think, is a great book for that. This book is a great book to change your perspective, right? And there's actually a part in the book in which, Robert Kiyosaki says, hey, can you teach me, telling his rich father, can you teach me about how to become rich, right? I want to be rich. And he says, okay, start working for my convenience store. And I think he actually makes him work for free for a long time. And he was getting fed up. Like, I spent all this time, going in to make this money, right? Or I spent all this time and not getting paid. And so he tells him, I'll pay you minimum wage. And so he gets paid minimum wage, but it was like well below minimum wage, right? He told him, because he was a young kid still. And so he essentially, evolves. He gets fed up at that point. And he says, hey, this isn't working for me. And he says, well, that's up to you. Either I can triple your amount or you can continue working for me, right? And so he essentially, he comes to find out that you need to be more resourceful, right? And so I think he was actually cutting something out of a magazine that he could turn around and sell for more money on the street. And so that's essentially what it was. Why it was just challenging him to be more resourceful. And so there's a bunch of different tips and things and advice throughout the book in which he gets as a young man from his rich dad and from his poor dad, and really makes you look at perspective, right? And your thought on money and how it can be used to your benefit, as opposed to, working that regular 9 to 5, which is so hard to do, right? Because that's the system in which a lot of us are grown up and raised in, right? And if you come from any kind of entrepreneurial background, your parents or anybody like that, unless you've come from that, family, you are not really shown that route, right? And so this book really changes that. It really changes your mindset. And it's one of those books that, I wish I would have had like in high school, right? And really change my perspective on money. And I think it's one of those things that a lot of high schoolers need to read, right? Before you come out into the real world and realize that there's this other world out there, right? And that you don't have to work through this system in which you have to go to college, you have to, do all these different things. And so that's ultimately what this book is, right? I think it's a book that would help anybody, that would allow you to, change your perspective on money. And a lot of times that's all it is. You just got to change your perspective, and it can make, life-changing, changes in your life. And so that's just one of the biggest things, one of the biggest concepts you get out of this book is what money is, right? Money is a tool and how you can use it to your benefit. And so, again, this is one of those books that I've read a couple different times. I probably actually need to read it again. It was a phenomenal read, and I do enjoy it. It's one of those ones I want to read every year because it's that good. It's probably actually one of my top 10 books. And I've read so many different books, but this book just really stands out, right? It's one of those books that you keep going back to and getting new information from and applying it, right? And so if you guys actually want this book, I'll leave it down in the description. And as far as like any cons to this book, I must say that for cons for this book, I didn't have any, right? It's because it was all new to me, this new concept of the way he saw money, right? The way it was presented, because I don't have any entrepreneurs essentially in my family, right? And so I was never shown that perspective. In getting this book, it really shows you that perspective. It really opens your mind to a different world on money, right? And how to use money essentially as a tool, as opposed to hoarding it in hopes that your money doesn't get taken, right? And so ultimately, I would give this book, a thumbs up, because this book is phenomenal. It's one of those things you definitely have to read. If you haven't read, I would highly suggest that you do read it. I believe this book is for everybody. Everybody needs to be, more versed in finance and understand the power of money, and that money can be in abundance, that money is essentially a tool, right? Money's not bad. It is a tool to get those things, right? To help others, to do all these other different great things. And this is one of those books that can get you started down that direction. And if you're actually interested in this book, I will leave it down in the description. And until next time, I will see you guys later.